Welcome, Dr. Indu. So we are just starting this session. So first, Anushka will introduce you, and then we will start.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Indu has received PhD from IIT Delhi. She was a postdoctoral researcher at India Sofia Antipolis, France, and Technical University of Munich, Germany. She is an INEI student member and a Raman Chartered Fellow. She has represented India at BRICS Young Scientist Cocktail and has also attended the Heidelberg Laureate Forum. She has also been awarded for her popular science writing skills by the Science and Technology Ministry of India. She is a DAD Postdoc.NET AI Fellow and a recipient of the Institute Silver Medal by the President of India for her MTech degree.
Okay. So now you can start your session. Can you share the screen?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
So first of all, thank you, the organizing committee, for inviting me. It's indeed a pleasure. I was once a student at NIT Delhi, master student, and then went on to become a faculty over here, and then now being welcomed as a guest, it feels very, very honored, and it's always my pleasure to be associated to NIT Delhi in whichever way possible. So with that, I will start my first session. So I have two sessions today. So the first session, we are going to talk about responsible AI. And in the context of responsible AI, we will be talking about how can we design deep models which are generalizable and also safe, right? And then in the second session, we will be talking about the explainable AI models, right? So let's first talk about why deep models are the rage, right? Why do we see that, irrespective of which application you see, deep models are the ones which are the state of the art, right? So there are two reasons for that. So firstly, deep models allow automated feature learning, right? So conventionally, when we used to do traditional machine learning, there you have to first extract the features, right? You have to understand the data, understand the domain, understand which features are going to be relevant for my problem. Okay, so that is called feature engineering, right? And having learned or having extracted those features, then you basically learn a classifier. Let's say you are doing a classification task. With deep models, you do not need to know what features are important. Rather, deep models automatically extract the features from the data, and therefore we eliminate the need for handcrafting, and that is one of the biggest reasons why deep models will work. Even if you do not know much about the data, what will work? You put in deep models, they can automatically learn the features, and you get very high numbers. So this is one of the biggest reasons that it can automate learn features in an automated fashion. Second reason why deep models are the state of the art is that because they are way better in terms of handling data, right? So they can handle large and complex data sets very, very effectively, which leads to ultimately more robust models because you have very, very large data sets in your hand. Now, if everything is so good about deep models, then what is really the challenge? So one of the there are basically two challenges that we are going to discuss. So first challenge is that poor generalization. So you get very good numbers if let's say you train on some data and you test on the similar data. You get very high numbers, right? But the moment your data distribution is changed, right? If you take, मान लीजिए आपने किसी Oppo phone से आपने एक face recognition software को you have designed. But let's say you try to test that software on images from iPhone, you will see कि performance एकदम degrade होगी, right? क्योंकि हमारा data का distribution change हो गया. अगर आपने लेट्स से डे की इमेजेस में आपने मॉडल को ट्रेन किया और एकदम से नाइट की इमेज आ जाएगी, आप देखोगे कि मॉडल इज नॉट गोइंग टू परफॉर्म एज गुड. जबकि ह्यूमंस जो है वो दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू have such serious complications, right? But with deep models, because again the problem lies because you do not have any control. हमने तो फीचर को डिजाइन करे नहीं, it is automatically learning, so you do not know what it is learning, right? So the poor generalization on unseen data and then the black box behavior, right? जो इसकी सबसे बड़ी strength है वही इसका issue भी है, right? कि अपने आप सब कुछ लर्न हो रहा है, हमें पता नहीं कि क्या लर्न हो रहा है, राइट? सो दिस इज कॉल्ड ब्लैक बॉक्स बिहेवियर, कि आपने कुछ इनपुट दिया, उसका कुछ आउटपुट आया, यू डू नॉट नो हाउ दैट आउटपुट इज कमिंग फ्रॉम, राइट? सो दैट इज कॉल्ड ब्लैक बॉक्स बिहेवियर. सो two challenges are there in the deep models. First is poor generalization on unseen data, and the other one is black box behavior. Okay, so what we will do is in our research we are going to exploit techniques like attention mechanisms, self-supervision, consistency regularization. So these techniques are going to ensure that we have a better model in terms of generalization. Now, because we know that there is a black box behavior, hence safety becomes an issue, right? You do not know when the output of the model is trustable. So there comes the issue of safety. So how do you impart safety to a deep model is through uncertainty estimation. So again, we are going to talk about uncertainty estimation. So the examples I'm going to talk you through about is in terms of fingerprint preprocessing, but these techniques are very, very generic, and for any application at hand, you can easily adapt them. So if you have any questions so far, please feel free to ask, and you do not even have to wait. If you have any question, just please feel free to ask. So can I go ahead, or is there any question from the audience? Okay, so I'll go ahead. So now the question is, what is generalization ability, right? हम कह रहे हैं कि हमें चाहिए कि मॉडल जो है वो better generalize करे. So होता क्या है generalization? What is generalization ability? So the huge model capacity of deep neural networks makes them vulnerable to overfit on the training data. हमारा जो deep model होता है उसमें there are millions of parameters, जिसकी वजह से उसको strength मिलती है कि वो किसी भी function को learn कर सकता है. तो this is called as huge model capacity, right? But then because of this, the simple rule is that if your model has a huge model capacity, you need a proportional amount of data, training data, so that it doesn't overfit, right? Otherwise, it can learn patterns which are redundant and which do not really generalize. So it is the huge model capacity of neural networks which makes them vulnerable to overfit on training data. Later on, when you test such a model on a real world test data which can have a distribution different from the training set, you see that the performance degrades. Like I gave you the example. आपने Oppo पे ट्रेन किया, Oppo की बेसिस पे, लेकिन iPhone पे वो नहीं चला, right? तो आप देखते हो कि परफॉर्मेंस डिग्रेड कर जाती है. ये जो फिनोमिना है कि Oppo की इमेजेस पे तो बहुत अच्छे रिजल्ट आ रहे हैं, but not you get very poor results for let's say iPhone images, then this is called as poor generalization. Okay, when your model is doing very well on the training time, doing very well on the testing on the same data set also, but as soon as the distribution of the data changes and your performance degrades, we say that the model is not able to generalize. This is poor generalization. So how can we improve generalization? So first technique is through attention mechanism. Attention mechanisms का induction ये है कि let's say in today's talk I say let's say 1,000 or 10,000 words. Not every word is going to be as important versus the other, right? Maybe the word black box behavior is going to be important. Maybe the word generalization has more meaning. Maybe attention mechanism. So some words are going to have more importance versus the other. Ultimately, the whole paradigm of AI and machine learning is to use the human intelligence. You will try to keep it in a to make a machine, take that intelligence to next level. So again, motivated by this idea that humans can naturally understand what are the salient regions in a complex scenes. So attention mechanism is you can identify what is the more important aspect of my input versus the other, right? हमारा बहुत बड़ा input भी है, मान लीजिए एक image है. So let's say you have to detect cancer, then maybe certain tissues are only going to have or certain pixels are going to have more weightage versus the other, right? Background तो उतना matter करेगा नहीं, शायद foreground में कुछ area होगा जिसपे आप ज़्यादा focus करोगे. So the idea is that you are trying to understand a weight, which pixel is going to have more weight versus the other in a sense, right? So attention mechanism in a sense can be regarded as a dynamic weight adjustment process based on the feature of the input image, right? So आपको अपने input को देखना है और then dynamically understand करना है model को कि what is more important versus the other. जो भी ज़्यादा important है उसका weight आप बढ़ा देंगे और जो भी कम important है उसका weight आप कम कर देंगे. So it's a dynamic weight adjustment process in a nutshell if you have to explain what is attention mechanism, right? So हम attention mechanism से कैसे generalization कर सकते हैं, improve? So firstly let's talk about attention किस तरीके की होती है, right? What are the different kinds of attention mechanisms? So first kind of attention mechanism is called as channel level attention, right? So in convolutional neural networks, we basically learn many filters, right? So each filter is basically representing a channel, right? So once we try to understand which filter is more important the other, or which channel is more important versus the other, that kind of attention is called as channel level attention. In spatial attention, we are in the spatial domain. So let's say आपकी कोई image है, तो आप उसके pixels पे आप understand करेंगे कि which pixel is more important versus the other. So you basically generate an attention mask corresponding to the spatial domain. So that becomes spatial attention. Temporal attention में क्या होगा? You will be working in the domain of videos, okay? And then some frame is going to be more important versus the other, right? So there will be a weight for each frame, right? So आप किस axis पे basically attention को learn करने, that is going to define its category. So in temporal attention, it is the every time frame for which you are going to generate an attention mask and understand which is a key frame. In branch level attention, basically in your neural network there could be multiple branches, right? So एक branch let's say आपको बता रहा है कि कैंसर है या नहीं, yes or no. दूसरा branch आपको let's say ये बता रहा है कि कैंसर कौन से pixels पे है. तीसरा आपको ये बता रहा है कि कितना dense है वो, is it like very severe or what, right? So there could be different branches in the output as well, right? And then once you try to give a weight which branch is more important versus the other, that kind of attention is called as branch level attention. But then you can have some combinations also. Then there could be attention mechanism which is both operating on the channel and the spatial domain, which is called as channel and spatial attention, right? तो यहाँ पे आपका मार्क्स channel level पे भी और spatial attention दोनों पे आपका जो है आप jointly learn करोगे. In spatial and temporal attention again, एक spatial domain का भी आपका मार्क्स होगा, एक temporal का भी, और इन दोनों का calculation आप जो learn करोगे. So these are the different kinds of attention mechanism. Am I good so far? आपको समझ में आ रहा है?
If you have any question, please ask.
In case you have any question, please feel free to ask. Okay? So now I will be talking about one of the attention mechanism. Like I told you कि हमारे पास बहुत सारे तरीके के attention mechanisms हो सकते हैं. जो one of the simplest, one to implement and which really works is called as channel level attention. Like I said, इसमें हम जो है हर channel के लिए और हर filter के लिए in a sense भी हम learn करते हैं कि क्या attention rate होना चाहिए. So like I said, deep models often have a huge number of parameters, generally in millions, right? Therefore, it is highly likely that many of the channel weights learned by the deep models might be redundant. आप इतने सारे weights को learn कर रहे हो, millions of आपके parameters हैं, सबके लिए आपको parameter weight learn करने. But of course, हर parameter तो इतना important होगा नहीं, हर channel weight उतना important नहीं होगा, right? So in channel level attention, the idea is कि हम सारे diverse features को learn करें. We want to ensure that the redundancy between features is low and we can learn more diverse features, right? And why is it so, right? So why do you say something is good, right? When it generalizes, और वो generalizability कहाँ से आती है? जब आप अलग-अलग features को learn करोगे, right? Maybe you have 10 ideas to do something. If one idea fails, maybe some other idea can come, right? If that idea again failed, maybe you have new idea, right? जब आपके पास let's say 10 ideas होंगे तो the likelihood कि आप ultimately successful होंगे इस problem को solve करने में वो बढ़ जाएगी. Similarly, when you learn diverse features, the likelihood that you will do a correct classification, for instance, is going to be higher, right? अगर सब same ही features को learn आप करोगे तो जैसे ही आपकी image थोड़ी सी भी change होगी, that feature is not going to generalize and you will see a drop. But let's say you learn diverse features, so क्योंकि आपने अलग-अलग features को learn किया है, तो इसीलिए अगर आपका एक fail भी करता है, एक feature नहीं भी generalize करता है, तो भी आपके बाकी जो features हैं, they are going to work. So, do you understand why we need to learn diverse features? Is the motivation clear? Okay. So now, how do we learn channel level attention, right? So we use something called as a channel refinement unit. So channel refinement unit में क्या होगा? Basically, like I told you, हमारे पास में जो भी feature है, right? जैसे मान लीजिए हमारे input feature है x, right? उसकी dimension है L cross H cross C. Okay? So now हम basically we are going to learn of importance weight or attention weight for each of the channel, right? तो ये हमारे let's say C channels हैं, तो हमारे पास में जो output आएगा that is also going to be a vector of size C, right? क्योंकि हमें हर channel के लिए we want to know what is the weight, right? ये कितना important channel है versus the other. तो ये हमारा एक input feature है जिसमें let's say हमारा जो number of channels है that is C. Through channel level attention, you are basically trying to learn this attention vector which has the same length as the number of channels in your input, right? यहाँ पर input channel C है, तो यहाँ पे भी output C आएगा. हमें idea क्या है हमारा? We have to understand which channel is more important versus the other. So what we are going to do is, basically अगर हमें ये जानना है कि कौन सा channel more important है, तो we have to somehow summarize the information which is there in the spatial domain because we are now operating on the channel domain. So what we have is we have a global average pooling layer, right? So उससे आपका जो spatial domain का contribution है वो आपका sum हो जाएगा. Then you have to have a learnable component to understand what is more important versus the other. So we have depth-wise convolutions followed by batch normalization. Batch normalization we all know, right? And then we have sigmoid क्योंकि हमें ultimately चाहिए कि जो हमारा weight है that should be in the range 0 to 1. So after this you basically learn your attention weights which is a C-dimensional vector. Then you multiply this attention weight with the original feature. तो आपका क्या हो गया? Feature आपका recalibrate हो गया. जो आपकी values थी अब वो modify हो गई. तो मेरी problem के लिए what is a better feature vector? Which channel should have more weight versus the other? वो हमें एक नया feature vector मिल गया X में. So this is how you can learn channel level attention. Okay? And how do we implement this? After each convolution block, we have a channel refinement unit, right? जब आप next convolution layer के पास में आप भेजेंगे, उससे पहले आप channel refinement unit को लगाएंगे. तो जो भी आपके features learn हुए, they are going to be recalibrated before going to the next layer, right? So this is how it's very very simple. The idea is very very scalable. In pretty much any neural network, you can do this. Okay? So this is how you can use channel level attention and improve generalization, right? So through ultimately we want to show that diverse features are being learned, right? Which means the redundancy among features has been reduced, right? So if you try to plot a correlation matrix, you see that initially, let's say there was some correlation, that correlation is now reduced, right? It's way lesser. So that is how you see that your features are diverse indeed in nature. And of course, you see a performance gain. You see that whatever your task you are doing, you see a better performance, right? So I am now doing a task of fingerprint enhancement, where I'm trying to convert this poor quality fingerprint into a better quality fingerprint. So you see, this is a noisy part. The baseline deep model is not able to distinguish that this is noise, this is not the foreground. But after using channel level attention, it understands, better, the input better, and that's why you see that this noise is being ignored much better versus the baseline. Okay, so this is one way to improve generalization. Am I good so far?
Ma'am, I have a question here.
Yes.
The channels, by the channels you mean the filters that we pass in the convolution layer, right?
Yes.
And they are not the 3 channels of RGB, right? You're like RGB is like classified as spatial channel.
No. These are the features, right? जो आपने let's say आपने कोई कर्नल लगाया, right? जितने आपके कर्नल होंगे उतने ही आपका आउटपुट का चैनल आएगा, right? तो आपको किस चैनल को ज़्यादा वेट देना है versus the other, यानी आपको किस फीचर को ज़्यादा वेट देना है versus the other, that is what we are doing.
Right,
Okay.
simple like which node is getting more weight in a simple neural network, right?
Yes,
Like
yes.
analogically.
Which filter is having more weight versus the other, yes.
Okay. Also, can you click on that hide button on the screen?
Sorry, I do not hear you properly.
On your screen, you might see a tab where you are stop sharing and hide. Can you click on that hide option? It's actually covering some of the text of your slides.
Anurag sir, can you repeat what he's saying? I'm not able to hear it clearly.
So use microphone and speak loud.
So can you, ma'am, can you please click on that hide button that is.
Okay, you want me to hide, okay.
Yeah, it's covering some of the
Okay.
text. Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so am I good so far? Can I move ahead?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. Right, so हमने अभी तक क्या सीखा कि अगर हमें जनरलाइजेशन इंप्रूव करना है तो we can use channel level attention. Now I argue that you can also improve generalization through multitask learning. Multitask learning में क्या होता है? Let's say किसी का छोटा सा बच्चा है, right? तो उसको लोग कहते हैं कि हम इसको क्या क्या सिखा रहे हैं, हम इसको ट्यूशंस भी भेज रहे हैं, हम इसको स्कूल में भी भेज रहे हैं, हम इसको स्विमिंग भी सिखा रहे हैं, हम इसको सिंगिंग क्लास में भी भेज रहे हैं, हम इसको स्पोर्ट्स के लिए भी भेज रहे हैं. Why? Because we want the child to learn as diverse kind of features or as diverse kind of skills, ताकि वो जब एक रियल वर्ल्ड में निकले तो उसको वो सारी स्किल्स कॉम्प्लीमेंट करे, उसको किसी ना किसी तरीके से. जरूरी नहीं कि उसको एक स्पोर्ट्समैन ही बनना है, but sports can maybe teach him discipline, right? Maybe learning music can teach that person, to concentrate. Do you get what I'm saying? So sometimes, जबकि अगर अल्टीमेटली किसी को एकेडमिक्स में जाना है तो उसको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ना चाहिए कि हमें क्यों सीखना चाहिए, बट इट कैन हेल्प यू विद सम अदर स्किल जो कि इवेंचुअली आपके मेन टास्क जो कि लेट्स से आपको पढ़ाई करना है उसमें आपको हेल्प कर सकता है. अगर आप बेटर कॉन्सेंट्रेट करोगे तो आप बेटर पढ़ाई कर पाओगे. तो सिमिलरली मल्टीटास्क लर्निंग में भी हम इसी तरीके से करते हैं. जनरली जब हम किसी डीप मॉडल को ट्रेन करते हैं, once we train a deep model conventionally, then you train it only on the conventional task, right? But once you do multitask learning, then we have some complementary task which is some way complementing the main task, right? हम उसके साथ भी कुछ additional auxiliary task को हम introduce करते हैं which may not be directly contributing but indirectly वो ऐसे features को learn करने में help करता है जिससे आपका main task पे improvement हो सकता है. So this is called as multitask learning, right? So multitask learning is a machine learning technique in which a single model is trained to perform multiple tasks simultaneously, right? तो conventionally हम क्या सोचते हैं कि classification करना है तो एक बस एक classification ही करेंगे, नहीं, but हम यहाँ पे कह रहे हैं कि आप जो मेन टास्क है उसको करो, उसके अलावा आप कुछ और मल्टीपल टास्क को भी साइमल्टेनियसली, राइट? प्लीज लुक एट द वर्ड साइमल्टेनियसली, एक साथ में हम मल्टीपल टास्क को लर्न करेंगे. दिस इज इन कॉन्ट्रास्ट टू ट्रेडिशनल सिंगल टास्क लर्निंग वेयर अ सेपरेट मॉडल इज ट्रेन्ड फॉर ईच टास्क, राइट? सो नाउ मल्टीटास्क लर्निंग कैन बी बेनिफिशियल व्हेन द टास्क आर रिलेटेड टू ईच अदर as the model can leverage the information shared across the task to improve its performance on all of them. राइट? जब आप साथ में सब कुछ लर्न करोगे तो आपके सारे टास्क परफॉर्मेंस इंप्रूव होगी. लेट मी गिव यू एन एग्जांपल, राइट? सो फॉर इंस्टेंस यू हैव टू ट्रेन अ मॉडल टू प्रेडिक्ट द प्राइस ऑफ द हाउसेस, राइट? बट देन अगर मैं आपसे ये भी कहूं कि आप अपने डी मॉडल से ये भी प्रेडिक्ट करवाओ कि उसमें कितने नंबर ऑफ बेडरूम्स हैं, तो नेचुरली जिसका बेडरूम ज्यादा होंगे उसमें जितना बड़ा घर होगा जितने रूम ज्यादा होंगे उसका प्राइस ज्यादा होगा, राइट? So these tasks are related. May not be you may not see it directly, but yes, they are related, right? The price of house is indeed dependent upon the number of bedrooms as well, right? So in this kind of a way, you can learn, you can get better performance on your task, right? So is the example I can tell you. So again, the problem is fingerprint restoration or denoising. So we have a input image. जिसको हमें we have to train to do restoration. Now what we will do is we will have one more additional task which is the jigsaw puzzle, right? जैसे हम छोटे बच्चे को क्या बोलते हैं कि उसको हम उस jigsaw puzzle solve करने के लिए बोलते हैं, right? So let's say we want the child to solve the problem of the jigsaw puzzle for dinosaur. The only way a child can do this jigsaw puzzle correctly if he understand what a dinosaur is, right? So similarly, अगर हम यहाँ पे fingerprint image की jigsaw puzzle बना के एक और एडिशनल टास्क दें कि आप इस जिग्सॉ पजल को सॉल्व करो, the only way this jigsaw puzzle could be correctly solved is when the model understands कि fingerprint कैसा होता है, उसको पता होना चाहिए कि ऊपर से ऐसा दिखता है, smoothness होती है, this kind of a structure is not possible. So once you solve this task, you get an intrinsic understanding of fingerprint, what a fingerprint is, and once you try to make some gibberish pattern, आपको आउटपुट में समझ में आएगा कि यार ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता, this is not possible, this is not a fingerprint is like. So inherently you will see a better performance on the main task. This is also one of the ways through which you can improve generalization, right? So we do this and we find that indeed the performance improves, and from 7.30 error we get to 5.64. So am I good so far? So the second way to improve generalization is through multitask learning, making your model do multiple tasks at a time. Do you guys follow? समझ में आ रहा है सबको?
ठीक है, कंटिन्यू.
ओप्पो की इमेजेस पे आपने ट्रेन किया एंड नाउ यू आर टेस्टिंग ऑन इमेजेस ऑफ आईफोन, राइट? तो आपका मॉडल उतना अच्छा परफॉर्म नहीं करेगा। कोई ऐसा है जिसको इस पे डाउट है? समवन हु हैज एन आर्गुमेंट कि नहीं ऐसा नहीं होगा, और यू गाइस अग्री? व्हाट इज योर गोल? If you can raise your hand, how many say that if we train on one kind of a data set and then test on the other, we do see a performance degrade? How many agree to it? If you do, please raise your hand.
Ma'am, like if we have trained our data set on a, like as you said, on images of Oppo, but like we do transformation, right? We convert the images into a uniform size and like whatever it is. So when we are testing it on images from iPhone, we can convert it into the same size in uniform.
My question is कि let's say आपने let's say medical image का हम example लेते हैं, okay? तो आपने let's say आप CT कराने के लिए गए या MRI कराने के लिए गए, आपका एक डिवाइस है जिसने आपकी इमेज को कैप्चर किया, राइट? और अब वो इमेज एक तरीके से दिखेगी क्योंकि एक डिवाइस ने किया है। अब हमने उसी पे मॉडल को ट्रेन किया और उसी पे हमने टेस्ट भी किया, तो हम देख रहे हैं कि मॉडल की अच्छी एक्यूरेसी आ रही है। नाउ आई एम सेइंग कि आप अभी लेट्स से गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल से अब आप मैक्स में चले गए, मे बी दे आर यूजिंग इवन बेटर मशीन्स, तो आपकी इमेज भी थोड़ी अलग दिखेगी। नाउ डू यू एक्सपेक्ट कि जो मॉडल पुराने डेटा पे बहुत अच्छे नंबर ला रहा है वो इस नए सेंसिंग डिवाइस के डेटा पे भी सिमिलर नंबर्स लाएगा या परफॉर्मेंस कम होगी? हाउ मेनी से परफॉर्मेंस सेम रहेगी? How many say कि performance degrade होगी? Please raise their hand. Okay, so I do see a good number. कितने ऐसे लोगों को ये लगता है कि कुछ नहीं होगा? या मुझे नहीं पता? Okay, so what is more likely is कि performance आपका degrade होगा। और performance क्यों degrade होगा? क्योंकि ये data जो है ना, deep model क्या है? वो बुद्धू model, right? उसने क्या किया, बहुत सारा डेटा लिया, उसको उसने रट लिया। जब तक आप उस मॉडल पे स्ट्रिक्ट रेगुलराइजेशन नहीं करोगे, इट कैन लर्न एनी एब्सर्ड पैटर्न, उसको कुछ मतलब नहीं है। वो इतना पावरफुल मॉडल है कि वो कुछ भी लर्न कर सकता है, राइट? इट इज योर ड्यूटी टू मेक इट रेगुलराइज सो दैट इट अंडरस्टैंड्स व्हाट इज राइट, व्हाट इज रॉन्ग, राइट? और जो हम अभी तक पढ़ रहे हैं वो सब एक तरीके से रेगुलराइज करने के तरीके ही हैं, राइट? तो ये जो फिनोमेना है, राइट, दैट यू टेक इमेजेस फ्रॉम वन सेंसर फॉर इंस्टेंस एंड देन यू मूव टू द डिफरेंट सेंसर, राइट? तो यहाँ पर परफॉर्मेंस क्यों डिग्रेड हो रही है? क्योंकि डोमेन शिफ्ट है, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन शिफ्ट है। जो इमेजेस ओप्पो में आपको दिखेंगी, आईफोन में कभी उतनी क्या ओप्पो के फोन में उतनी क्लैरिटी आएगी जितनी आईफोन में आएगी? यस और नो? नहीं आएगी, राइट? तो ये जो हमारा डेटा है जो कि एक्विजिशन की वजह से ही अलग दिख रहा है, दिस इज कॉल्ड एज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशनल शिफ्ट, राइट? और ये जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशनल शिफ्ट है या जो आपका डोमेन शिफ्ट है, इसकी वजह से भी आपका मॉडल की परफॉर्मेंस कम होती है। अब हम ये तो नहीं कह सकते कि हमने इस डेटा पे ट्रेन किया है, आप इसी पे टेस्ट करो, नहीं। हमें मॉडल ऐसा बनाना है व्हिच कैन जनरलाइज टू एनी सॉर्ट ऑफ डोमेन शिफ्ट आल्सो। डू यू गेट द मोटिवेशन? Okay, so now how do we? So let's talk about what is domain shift and how can
there are some questions for online participant. Some participant has raised their hands. So please check.
Yes. I think, but because I asked to raise, I think that's in that. If there is a question from online participants, please unmute yourself and you can ask. Arpana Saxena, I see your hand being raised. Do you have any question?
Someone has typed some message.
Okay.
Message is typed.
Okay, so let's talk about guys what is domain shift and how can we counter that. Okay, so domain shift, also known as the distribution shift, refers to a situation where the statistical properties of the data change between the training and the deployment stages of a machine learning model, right? आपने ट्रेन किसी पे किया और डिप्लॉय या टेस्ट किसी और पे आप कर रहे हो।
Actually, one participant is
आपकी डेटा की प्रॉपर्टीज चेंज हो गई, स्टैटिस्टिकल प्रॉपर्टीज, इसको बोलते हैं डोमेन शिफ्ट।
So one participant.
किस वजह से हो सकता है?
Hello, Ritu. One participant has typed a message. Please see that message. I think she is not getting this Hindi version.
Okay, so some people say that I should speak only in English. Okay, so let me do that. Okay, so like I was saying, domain shift is basically the distributional shift, which is due to the fact that the statistical properties of the data can change between the training and the deployment stage. But why does this, happen? Why do we see the statistical properties of the data being changed, right? So there could be multiple reasons for it, right? Firstly, the example that I gave you that during the very source from which you are collecting the data that could change, right? So maybe you have collected the data during training from other domain or some other source, and now at the testing time you are taking the data from the another source. So if the source of the data itself changes, then of course the model performance is going to degrade. Alright, so this is domain shift. Again, there could be some changes over time, right? So let's say you are collecting the data for faces, right? And of course, after a few years, the face of a person changes, right? So again, the data distribution, could change. Or there could be some variation in the data collection, right? Maybe now new patterns are there or some new biases are there, the one who are collecting the data have changed, right? So there could be so many reasons because of which you can encounter this domain shift. But irrespective of how that is coming, and we cannot really control, over, why this domain shift is happening, our task really is to ensure that domain shift is not there. Or, in our model, that is not going to affect it, right? It is there in our data, we have to live with it and make a model which is going to generalize, right? So how do you do that? Now you adapt your data to a different domain, right? This area is called as domain adaptation, right? So data distributions in the real world rarely match perfectly. So let's say the traffic cameras which are deployed in bright cities, they will not work if let's say they are tested in snowy mountain roads, right? So this is really the crux of domain adaptation. You have one data set, you are adapting your model trained on the data of one data set called as the source domain. Now you want that model to perform well on a different data set, which is called as the target domain, right? So the training domain is called as the source domain, and the target domain is called as the testing domain is called as the target domain. So the model we are trying to adapt to a new, domain. This is called as domain adaptation. So it bridges, essentially the gaps, domain gaps, and makes the model generalize better. Now there are two ways to do this, this domain adaptation. Either it could be supervised or it could be unsupervised, right? So during the adaptation, if let's say you have the labels, you have the supervision available, you have the labels available to you from the target domain. And then you are, let's say, trying to adapt your model, then that is called as a supervised domain adaptation. Alright? But let's say you do not have any access to the labeled target data. You have the unlabeled target data, but you do not have access to labels, right? Then that is called as unsupervised domain adaptation, right? So in supervised domain adaptation, it requires some labeled data in the target domain alongside the fully labeled source data, right? So source is always labeled. The target domain could be labeled or could not be labeled. If it is labeled, it is called as supervised domain adaptation. If the target domain is not labeled, it is called as unsupervised domain adaptation. Alright, so these are the two kinds of domain adaptation techniques. But then, which one is more beneficial versus the other, right? So what should we go for? Supervised domain adaptation or unsupervised domain adaptation? What do you think, guys? What is going to be more helpful? If we use the labels from the target domain, do supervised domain adaptation or unsupervised domain adaptation? Which one is going to be much easier or much more helpful? Supervised or unsupervised? Those in favor of supervised, please raise your hand. Those who say unsupervised is going to be more beneficial, please raise their hand. So, see, unsupervised means कि आपके पास labels नहीं है. अगर मैं आपको कुछ भी करने के लिए बोल रही हूँ और आपके पास में एक लेबल ही अवेलेबल नहीं है, then it's a much more difficult task to do, isn't it? हमारी लर्निंग बहुत इजी हो जाती है अगर हमारे पास कुछ एग्जांपल्स होते हैं which are labeled. ये एक लिमिटेशन है डोमेन एडेप्टेशन में, अनसुपरवाइज्ड डोमेन एडेप्टेशन में, कि हमारे पास लेबल्स नहीं है. That's why supervised domain is much recommended for domain adaptation in case you have labels available. In case you do not have labels available with you, then you have no option but to go for actually unsupervised domain adaptation. Okay? Right, so choosing between supervised domain adaptation and unsupervised domain adaptation really depends upon the specific circumstances. If the label target data is readily available, supervised domain adaptation might be the better choice. But if acquiring such a data becomes difficult or expensive, UDA offers a valuable alternative. अगर आपके पास में डेटा है तो आप supervised domain adaptation करिए. अगर आपके पास में टारगेट डेटा के लेबल्स हैं ही नहीं तो आप क्या कर सकते हैं? तब आपके पास कोई चॉइस नहीं, तब आप करेंगे unsupervised domain adaptation. Okay? Now, but unsupervised domain adaptation is more common, right? Because हमें जहाँ पर टेस्ट करना है हम उनसे नहीं बोल सकते कि अब हमें यहाँ के लेबल्स भी दो, राइट? यू आर लेट्स से सेलिंग अ प्रोडक्ट, आप कह रहे हो कि मैंने कैंसर डिटेक्शन का जो है ये एक डिवाइस बनाया. नाउ यू से कि अब अच्छा अगर आपकी इमेजेस है तो पहले आप मुझे इसके लेबल्स ला के दो, तो कोई आपका प्रोडक्ट खरीदेगा ही, राइट? सो द आइडिया इज कि टेस्टिंग टाइम पे अगर आपके लेबल्स नहीं भी अवेलेबल हैं टारगेट डोमेन में, हाउ डू यू अडैप्ट, राइट? हाउ डू वी, सो इट्स अ मच मोर चैलेंजिंग प्रॉब्लम एंड मच मोर प्रैक्टिकल आल्सो. So how do you improve generalization to unsupervised domain adaptation, right? So this is some of the examples of domain shift, right? So ये भी fingerprints है first row में, and the second row is also fingerprints. The first row is the synthetic fingerprints, and we have tried to create poor quality fingerprints by changing the backgrounds or maybe incorporating text in the background, including some lines and scratches, and these are real fingerprints, right? So है तो ये भी फिंगरप्रिंट है तो ये भी फिंगरप्रिंट, दोनों पोर क्वालिटी है. बट डू यू सी इफ वी ट्रेन अ मॉडल ऑन दिस काइंड ऑफ अ डेटा सेट, कैन वी एक्सपेक्ट द मॉडल टू डू वेल ऑन दिस वन? डू यू थिंक इट्स अ फेयर एक्सपेक्टेशन? यस और नो? So this is really a example of domain shift, right? So this example is basically telling you the examples of cross domain shift, right? So domain shift observed in cross database analysis. Once you are looking into different data sets, right? The domain shift that you observe, it leads to poor generalization of deep models. Unsupervised domain adaptation helps to address poor generalization due to domain shift. अब हम unsupervised domain adaptation हमें करना है, but how can we do it? How can we do unsupervised domain adaptation? So इसके भी we have different ways. So one of the very classical technique to do it is through self-supervised learning. So self-supervised learning में हम क्या करते हैं? Self-supervised learning means you do not have the labels, right? You do not have a supervision directly available to you, but you yourself try to create the supervision, right? आपके पास में कोई लेबल्स बना के आपको किसी ने नहीं दिया, बट आप खुद ही अपने आप को अपने लिए लेबल्स बना रहे हो, right? So essentially the model is trying to teach itself using the unlabeled data rather than relying on the manually labeled examples. तो हमारे पास कोई manual annotations available नहीं है, rather we are creating the annotations on the fly, right? That is called as self-supervised learning. The model is essentially teaching itself, right? So the model is given tasks to solve that seem unrelated to the actual goal, but actually forces it to learn underlying features and relationship within the data, right? So for instance, you are doing image classification, and the model might be asked to predict the rotation of an image or fill the missing parts, right? तो self supervision का example क्या हो सकता है कि आपने एक image ली, आपके पास उसके लिए कोई label तो थे नहीं, आपने उस image को खुद से rotate कर लिया 0 degree, 20, let's say 30 degree, 45 degree, 60 degree. Now because you have rotated it yourself, you have the ground truth available labels, right? Better तो ये होता कि आपको कोई annotated खुद से करके देता, but अगर वो नहीं है तो you yourself try to create those kind of labels. So that is called as self supervision, right? So इस तरह के टास्क क्या हो सकते हैं कि आप rotation let's say predict कर रहे हो, या कोई missing parts है, right? आपने क्या किया इम्पेंटिंग कर दी, कुछ पोर्शन ऑफ इमेज को हाइड कर दी, एंड नाउ यू सी कि प्रेडिक्टिंग एक कैसा पोर्शन था, राइट? तो इस तरीके के बहुत सारे हमारे सेल्फ सुपरवाइज लर्निंग के टास्क हो सकते हैं। तो हम सेल्फ सुपरवाइज लर्निंग यूज करके भी हम डोमेन एडेप्टेशन कर सकते हैं। हाउ डू वी डू दैट? Right, so how can we do unsupervised domain adaptation through self-supervision? So it is essentially bridging the data gap. In domain adaptation, remember the target data domain does not have the labeled data set. So the self-supervised learning is essentially trying to utilize the abundance of unlabeled data in both the domains to train on auxiliary tasks, extracting generalizable knowledge about data structure and relationship. This unsupervised learning helps bridging the data gap and allows the model to adapt to the target domain. So how do we do it, right? So let's say this is the image, this is the synthetic fingerprint image which is from the source, this is the real fingerprint image which is the target domain. Now you introduce, this is your main task, supervised task, and then you are trying to introduce some self-supervised task, some auxiliary task, right? So आप जो denoising कर रहे हो आप करो, उसके अलावा आप कुछ और auxiliary task को use कर लो, जैसे कि rotation classification. So you introduce this task कि कितने एंगल पे हमारी इमेज रोटेटेड है, is it 0, 90, 180, 270, right? And then you also try to, in the second task, you try to predict that which angle, this is called position prediction. कि ये जो patch है ये कहाँ से आया है, right? Is it the leftmost or top right or things like that. तो ये जो हम इस तरह के additional task introduce करते हैं, both in the domains. In C, we learn these tasks, these auxiliary tasks, both on the source domain and the target domain. You see the black and the blue for both the tasks, while the supervised task is trained only on the synthetic data set. So this is how you can do unsupervised domain adaptation through self-supervision. And again, we see that after domain adaptation, the model is understanding the foreground better versus the before. Now another technique is consistency regularization, but I think in the interest of time, I'll move to the safety part, right? So let's talk about the need for safe AI, right? So like we discussed, this is responsible AI, and we are trying to talk both about generalization and safety, right? So now let's talk about why do we need to have safe AI. So do any one of you have any questions so far? किसी को generalization में कोई doubt है? You want to know? Ask something?
Excuse me, ma'am. Do we use reinforcement for self-learning?
Self-supervised learning के लिए आपको इट्स क्लासिकल, जैसे आप डीप मॉडल को ट्रेन करते हो बिल्कुल वैसे ही ट्रेन करते हो, सिर्फ हम इसमें लेबल्स खुद से जनरेट करते हैं, ठीक है? अगर हमें टारगेट डोमेन के कोई लेक्चर लेबल्स नहीं मिले तो हम क्या करते हैं, खुद से लेबल्स को जनरेट करते हैं। और वो कैसे करते हैं? हमारे पास इमेज है, हमने उसको रोटेट कर दिया। अब हमने खुद से रोटेट किया तो हमें पता है कि हमने कितने डिग्री पे रोटेट किया था उसको, 0 पे, 90 पे, 270 पे, है ना? तो ये इसलिए इसको बोलते हैं सेल्फ सुपरविजन, कि कोई सुपरविजन था नहीं, किसी ने आपको लेबल नहीं दिए, लेकिन आप खुद ही
Which algorithms we use for this?
So the learning algorithms are not going to change. It is only going to contribute about how we create this kind of supervision, right? So how you can do self supervision is once by rotation, okay? The other is through inpainting. For videos, you can also have a self supervision task of predicting. Jigsaw puzzle is also one of the tasks. Also predicting, कि कौन सा फ्रेम को आपने परम्यूटेशन में सही से आपने लेट्स से आपने फ्रेम्स, आपकी वीडियोस है उसमें मल्टीपल फ्रेम्स हैं, आपने उसको गलत तरीके से परम्यूट कर दिया, देन यू आस्क द मॉडल कि आप इसको सही तरीके से इसको अरेंज करके बताओ सो दैट इट अंडरस्टैंड्स द टेम्पोरल पार्ट। सो इस तरीके के हमारे टास्क होते हैं सेल्फ सुपरविजन।
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am,
ओके
follow up to what Saroj asked. Like, okay, I got that the model will rotate the image on its own and then store that degree by which it rotated and then try to predict it and get the degree correct or maybe get a loss there. But ma'am, if I have to like get predictions of whether like it's a cat or a dog, then in that case I do need the labeled data, right? Like I cannot depend on unsupervised domain adaptation or unsupervised learning in that case.
Yeah, you are right. So if you look at the example, we had this, so let me show you. So we have this supervised, task. we are having this auxiliary tasks which are self-supervised in nature. You are right, अगर हमारे पास cat और dog के label नहीं है तो हम कभी भी नहीं समझ पाएंगे. But ये मेरा point यहाँ पर ये है कि अब cat जो है एक में ओप्पो से ली थी, एक में आईफोन से ली थी. अब जो ओप्पो वाले के लिए आपके पास लेबल्स है, आईफोन वाले के आपके पास लेबल्स नहीं है, तो आप क्या करोगे? आप आईफोन की इमेजेस में कैट डॉग के आपको लेबल्स तो नहीं मिलेंगे, बट आप क्या कर सकते हो, दोनों इमेजेस को रोटेट कर दो. वो तो आप कर सकते हो राइट, क्योंकि वो आपके खुद के हाथ में है. तो सुपरविजन हमारे पास नहीं है, बट वी आर ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट समथिंग राइट. सो समथिंग इज बेटर देन नथिंग राइट. सो ऑन दैट प्रिंसिपल वी आर ट्राइंग टू, क्योंकि हमारे पास टारगेट डोमेन के लेबल्स नहीं है. ये एक शॉर्टकमिंग है जिसके लिए हम ये कर रहे हैं. Do you get the intuition now?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. So now we will move ahead and we will talk about why at all we need to talk about safe AI. Right? So like I said, black box behavior of deep models can sometimes lead to incorrect decisions without any prior indication from the model. Right? Quantification of uncertainty helps to understand model confidence and noise in the input. So in one of the instances, Facebook had put the labels of primates on the videos of black men, right? Primates क्या होते हैं, जैसे monkeys होते हैं, उसका थोड़ा सा advanced और gorillas और उसके बीच का कुछ version. तो उन्होंने black men को AI ने Facebook of course it uses AI, उन्होंने उसको primates जो है label कर दिया. So again they had to officially apologize for this, because this is racist. Again Google Photos ने again it uses AI, तो उन्होंने क्या फेस रिकॉग्निशन सॉफ्टवेयर ने गोरिल्लास अफ्रीकन अमेरिकन्स को गोरिल्लास जो है टैग कर दिया था. तो अगेन दे हैड टू अपोलोजाइज. इन वन ऑफ द रादर मोर unfortunate incident, Uber की self driving car की testing was being conducted, and then there was a woman standing on the pedestrian, and the self driving car could not understand it, and it ran over the woman and she died, right? So when we talk about using deep learning for real world applications, we need to know when can we really trust the model. Is it really safe to trust this model, right? And uncertainty is something that really comes into play. आपका डीप मॉडल हमेशा ये तो दिस इज ट्रू कि वो कभी ना कभी तो गलती करेगा, हमेशा तो सही नहीं होगा. बट कैन आई समहाउ नो ये कब गलती करने वाला है, व्हेन इट इज नॉट कॉन्फिडेंट इन इट्स प्रेडिक्शन. सो दैट्स रियली द आइडिया बिहाइंड uncertainty estimation, right? So deep models do not specify when the model is expected to generate an erroneous prediction. Generally, किसी मॉडल में अगर uncertainty आती है deep model में, it arises because of the two things: uncertainty in the model parameters, which is called as model uncertainty, or uncertainty present in the noise present due to the noise present in the data, which is called as the data uncertainty. अगर आपका कोई ऐसा example है which has a lot of occlusion, right? Let's say you are trying to do face recognition and you have glasses on, right? Of course, it's a more difficult, recognition task, right? Let's say you have a hat on versus an example in which it is not, right? So, some examples are inherently more difficult versus the other, and those are going to be more likely to be erroneous versus the other, those predictions, right? So, uncertainty estimation can then really help you understand the noise present in the data, right? So, two kind of uncertainties are there: model or data uncertainty. So, model uncertainty signifies the uncertainty in the model parameters due to the limited availability of training data. We say that in the limit of machine learning basically relies on the principle that in the limit of infinite training data you can learn any possible pattern which is there, but we never have infinite data. So the uncertainty which is there in the model due to the limited availability of training data, that is called as the model uncertainty, and it can asymptotically vanish if you, let's say, have the infinite amount of training data, and it is usually higher for out of distribution sample. Data uncertainty on the other hand originates due to the noise present in the input, right? Factors such as occlusion or sensor noise result in high data uncertainty. Data uncertainty cannot be explained away even in the limit of infinite data, as it captures the inherent noise in the input. अगर कोई एग्जाम्पल डिफिकल्ट है तो है, राइट? आप उसकी अनसर्टेनिटी को कुछ नहीं कम कर सकते. अगर उसमें नॉइस है, अगर उसमें ऑक्लूजन है, तो यू कैन नॉट डू एनीथिंग, राइट? आप कितने भी डेटा पे ट्रेन कर लो, अनसर्टेनिटी कभी कम नहीं होगी. तो दैट इज डेटा अनसर्टेनिटी. जो अनसर्टेनिटी ऐसी है कि आपके पास लिमिटेड डेटा है, उसकी वजह से आती है दैट इज मॉडल अनसर्टेनिटी. और अब जैसे आपका डेटा बढ़ेगा, बहुत सारा डेटा होता जाएगा, आपकी मॉडल अनसर्टेनिटी कम होती जाएगी. So how do we estimate model uncertainty? So we basically use a idea called as the Monte Carlo dropout. The idea is that, let's say you go for an interview, the interviewer asks you a question, you say something. Again, he asks you the same question, you answer it differently. Third time he asks you the question, you answer it differently. Then whether he knows the answer or not, he knows that you do not know. Why? Because your output is changing too much. So in the similar sense, in deep models, if the model output change too much, that is an indicator of high, model uncertainty. So if, let's say, but how does the output of a model changes? So we basically at the test time introduce dropout in the neural network, and because of dropout, if you see that your model is changing too much, so we basically calculate the variance, right? So we do multiple iterations over the output and we quantify the variance of the output. If you see that the variance is high, it means that the model has higher model uncertainty. For the data uncertainty, you basically have one more branch in which you have a dedicated task, but you have one more wing which is going to quantify the data uncertainty, and the model is trained such that for all the pixels where the model is making a erroneous prediction, the associated data uncertainty has to be high. So this is how you can train the model to quantify data uncertainty, and you can analyze the predicted data uncertainty. So around the background regions, you see that the data uncertainty is higher because those are the points where you see a lot of noise and occlusion. On the points where the model is making a mistake, you see higher model uncertainty. We also quantify this through analyzing it, by plotting the graphs, and we see that the model uncertainty is indeed higher around the background, because ultimately it's difficult to classify the background versus the foreground, and it is higher for incorrectly classified pixels. Similarly, the similar trends are obtained for data uncertainty in background, and for incorrectly classified pixels, we see that the data uncertainty is higher. So to conclude, deep models offer promising solutions for image pre-processing. However, for them to be successfully deployed, the practices of generalizable and responsible AI solutions must be. In case you have any questions, please feel free to ask. So this is all from my side for this session.
Excuse me, ma'am, I have one quick doubt. Actually, as you said about two images from Oppo and iPhone, right? So, ma'am, while training a deep learning model, we convert all of the images, all of the training images into a uniform size, and we convert the dimensions into a uniform dimension. So, while performing inference also, we can do this. So, where will the problem come in data image of like a Oppo and an image from iPhone when we have the image into a uniform size?
आप इमेज को उसका रेजोल्यूशन सेव कर सकते हो, ठीक है, मतलब आपका स्पेशियल डायमेंशन आप सेव कर सकते हो, आप रीसाइजिंग कर दोगे, बट कैन यू रियली से कि वो इमेजेस बिल्कुल सेम दिखेंगी? नहीं दिखेंगी, राइट? सिमिलरली आपका मेडिकल डिवाइस का मैंने आपको एक एग्जांपल दिया. If there, because the problem is that the source of the data has changed. That is why the statistical properties of the data have changed. Now everything is dependent on the statistical property. If the statistical properties itself are changed, the deep models are not going to work better, right? You cannot control, right? In test time per what kind of a data the user can bring in. You cannot control that. That's why we are trying to counter the domain shift in the deep models.
So, ma'am, if I want to install a model on iPhone or on Android, so I'll have to train it on both. I'll have to train both the models on different training data sets.
You have to basically adapt your model, right? So whatever model you have, the same data set for the training you will have to need to have. On the new data set on which you are trying to adapt, you have to adapt it, and yes, adapting does require training. So yes, you will have to train it. on each data set, right, on which you are trying to test. Otherwise, you will see lesser numbers, right? That accuracy is not going to be good.
But ma'am, like if a model is trained on images from iPhone, it will perform good on Android, right?
No, वो भी नहीं होगा. I can tell you an example. अगर आप दिन की images में, if you let's say train your images on sunny images, right, and somehow जो जिस पे आप टेस्ट कर रहे हो वो images अगर शाम में की हो जाएंगी, daylight अगर चेंज हो जाएगी तो भी performance decrease हो जाता है, right? See, beam model is not like humans, right? जब intensity values change होगी उसके लिए इसका different matrix. It does not understand कि it's the same image. And that is what we are trying to enforce, it to understand the context of the image through domain adaptation. Do you get the intuition?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I get the intuition.
Okay.
So can we take break for 15 minutes and after that we will start next session?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so they have tea break and they will come again after 15 minutes. Okay.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
You can also take tea break.